tonight's guest, of course, as many of you saw, our topic is Love is a Choice. And it's going to be presented by Pastor Hunter. He pastors a church actually not too far from Brewton, Alabama. Most of you know that I'm kind of based out of Brewton, Alabama. It's one of the churches that we fellowship with. Good friends with my parents, and I consider them as wonderful people in the Lord. Just to give you a little bit about Pastor Hunter, he received his Bachelor's of Science degree from Alabama A&M in music education. He has taught in public and Catholic school systems for 25 years. He received a BS also in religious studies from A&M Bible College. He's also currently serves as Dean of Alabama District Council Bible Institute, as well as suffragan bishop and treasurer of the Alabama District Council of the Pentecostal Assembly of the World Organization. He was saved while attending college in Huntsville, Alabama. He met his wife right before graduating. He has been saved for over 32 years and has been married for 30 years. And all this at the age of 37. He's still a young man. Okay, you can tell I'm joking on that. But very, very energetic, very outstanding man of God. I've had opportunity to attend the singles fellowship at his church, as well as attend another one that he did in Mississippi, actually, where he was one of the speakers or whatnot. So he's has a very interesting presentation, and I'm so glad that he was able to come on tonight and present this topic. Love is a choice to us. So without further ado, we're going to let Pastor Hunter take it away.
Thank you, Brother Robbie. Praise the Lord, everybody. I am blessed and highly favored, and thank God for this opportunity to speak on this topic to this singles, phone conference group. And I don't know how many of you have muted your phones, but feel free if you want to ask a question or just stop me in the middle of discussing something to go back and repeat something or give further clarity on something that I said. And I don't consider myself an expert in when it comes to love, but I thank God for, a basic understanding of how this all fits into our human feelings and also what God expects out of us. When we speak of love, of course, it's a feeling, it's an emotion. And like any other emotion, whether it's anger, fear, whether it's sadness, and which also includes love, is something that for the most part we have control over, or we should have control over. A portion of those feelings or emotions are not necessarily a choice, a part of it. Sometimes you feel a certain way and you just cannot help that. But what we can control is how we respond to our feelings or our emotions, how we respond to it, whether or not we dwell on our feelings, whether or not we allow those feelings to deepen and grow within us and expand. We have that choice and that control over. And primarily for tonight's topic, we're going to deal with the emotion or the feeling of love. And some of you probably have heard of the basic types of love, which we contribute to the Greek language. And, of course, the easiest one to, recognize would be romantic love. And it's defined by the word eros from the Greek terms. And it is a romantic feeling that a man has toward a woman has toward a man. And God put that ability in us to have feelings toward the opposite sex. And it's normal. And, again, what we should be concerned about is how we respond to those feelings. And we make the decision whether or not we're going to allow those feelings to expand or we're going to cut them off based upon some value or something that we would not necessarily agree within a person. Of course, romantic love is innate. We're born with the capability of loving that way. It's conditional, and it's object-centered, meaning that it's based on certain conditions. In order to have romantic love, you have to have romantic feelings for the person. That you have to maintain romantic feelings toward that person in order to continue to have romantic love toward a person. It is object-centered, meaning that it's centered around the person, the individual that you have these feelings toward. The other type of love is family love, and it's defined as storge by the Greeks, and it's also an innate ability to love. It's conditional. The condition of family love is simply that. It's based upon loving members of your family, and the condition is I love individuals in my family simply because they are members of my family. And again, it is object-centered. It is centered around those individuals in my family that maintain personality or presentation that cause me to have a desire to continue to love them. And then, of course, there's affectionate love. It's defined by phileo. We get the name of the city, Philadelphia, from it. It's a friendly love. It's the love that two individuals that may find things in common and may be fond of one another, and they develop this type of love, friendship love. Again, it's innate, it's conditional, it's object-centered. And so these are the three types of human love that we have, and we were born with the innate ability. And, of course, the fourth type would be divine love. That's agape. It is not innate. It is acquired. It is unconditional, and it is source-centered. It is acquired by the infilling of God's Spirit. We are not capable of having divine love because divine love is unconditional. It is not based upon certain conditions. It loves in spite of. It continues to love in spite of. And it is source-centered. The source, of course, is God, or should I say God's Spirit. That is the source of agape love. Any questions or comments before we go into the main one that I want to primarily talk about? And it is a fifth one, and I will go into that one if there are no questions right at this point or comments. Are y'all still here?
I'm still on here.
Okay. It's very quiet. Maybe they muted themselves.
We're here.
Okay.
Enjoying it.
All right. Now, the one that's most confusing is the thing that we call being in love or falling in love. Now, I consider falling in love, being in love, as a stereotype of love. It is not really a true, I would say, identification of love. It does not identify with love as romantic love, family love, and affectionate love, and, of course, divine love. It is a stereotype of love. It's something that we have created a term for. In most cases, when two people meet and they decide they're going to be married, and quite often they are asked the question, are you all in love? And that question is asked to the individual, are you in love? Are you, the two of you, in love? And in some cases, they, of course, in most cases, they respond, yes, we are in love. In some situations, the individuals go on and they marry and continue in a relationship, where after some time, those feelings that they once had, they begin to fade away. And they begin to question whether or not they're still in love with the individual. And they make the mistake of basing their decision on the feelings that they had prior to their marriage, and they, under false assumption that those feelings automatically would just stay in place. But the reality is that that's a stereotype of love, and it's temporary, and it depending on the individual, it determines how long those feelings will last before they begin to fade away. And so falling in love, being in love, is a stereotype of love. it is a misleading type of love that can cause individuals to give up on a relationship simply because they have the false impression that they're supposed to feel that way, I guess, throughout the remaining of the relationship forever and ever and ever. And many marriages are falling apart. Many potential marriages or relationships are falling apart, and the individuals no longer continue because they were mistaken after those feelings begin to fade away. And so I don't believe I boldly say no individual should make a marriage decision based upon being in love. It's not about being in love. And for individuals to say they are in love and they can't help themselves, I boldly disagree with that statement, because going back to my opening statement, you may have those in-love feelings. I'm not going to say in-love feelings do not exist, but you decide how you're going to respond to the in-love feelings. And that choice continues throughout a relationship. So although the in-love feelings are real from the outset, but the individual decides, they make the choice whether or not they're going to be submissive to those in-love feelings and continue to allow those in-love feelings to develop in what I would say is the true love of the relationship, which would include, of course, romantic love, family love, affectionate love, and most needful, agape love, divine love. Any questions or comments at this point? I'm going to go deep into the in-love feelings shortly, if there are no comments or questions.
So Pastor Hunter, so just I'm taking notes over here. So 1 is romantic love, 2 is family love, 3 is friendly love, and then we have our divine love. Now, the 5th one, was that, what did you say, that stereo?
I said, yeah, that's stereotype of love. That's being in love. In love.
Okay, being in love.
Right. Which is not really, I put it in a separate category as being a stereotype of love. It's not really something that we, it's almost like an imagination. I mean, the feelings are, I'm not going to doubt that an individual does not experience. We all experience those people that have any type of relationship experience. I want to say, it was a song about, it was only puppy love. This type of thing. They use that terminology. It does exist, that in those in love feelings, but that's not what you want to build a relationship on. Yeah.
Would you say that 5th type of love is very akin to lust, or would we be going somewhere altogether different if we say that much?
Well, I would say a small degree. I believe it is possible for people to experience what they refer to as being in love and not necessarily lusting after one another. See, some people would say they're not in love, they're in lust. I think it's a difference. It may be a small connection, but I believe that it is possible for two people who are God-fearing people who want to do what's right to experience these, quote, and I put it in quotes, in love feelings.
Yes.
And also make an attempt to build a relationship around just the in love feelings, and they're setting themselves up for a tragedy in that relationship. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. I don't know if it's going to make sense to you, but that in love feeling, are you saying you're reserving that just to talk about agape? No, not agape. The kind of love, the romantic kind of love. Or do you think sometimes people look at their family, even their church family, and they think, I just really love these people because. And then when the because feeling is gone, they're like, I don't really love these people anymore.
Okay, now that I would consider that as being. I mentioned. I would close to the example that you just gave. I would relate that more so to the affectionate type of love. Now, I'm not dealing with divine love now, which is God, from God. It's agape. But let's say you made an illustration and you said an individual loved the people in the church because of certain conditions.
Mm-hmm.
They feel welcome. They feel that the people are friendly. And then once that starts to fade away, or for whatever reason something happens, then an individual they're no longer as fond of the people as they once were. Well, and that's human nature, because affectionate love, friendly love is conditional. I'm fond of you as long as you're fond of me. I mean, when it comes down to it. Now, we're not dealing with divine love here. I'm talking about affectionate love. People will be friends to a person that shows themselves friendly toward them. But when a person decides that they want to cut you off and don't have much to do with you, you may linger on just a little bit, but eventually you get over that, and you're not as fond of the person as you once were, and that's based on conditions. And that can relate to what we're dealing with when we speak of being in love to a certain degree. They all are conditional. They all are based on how I feel. They all are based upon what you say, what you do, and how you respond, except for the divine love, which is unconditional. And it is the source of it is God and God's Spirit. But you're right, all of the others, the family love, the romantic love, affectionate love, and this, quote, stereotype of love, they are all conditional. They are they could be temporary, or they could grow. It depends on the individual, and it depends on the object of the love. So does that answer to a certain degree?
Got it.
Or we can go further now if you have another question on that.
That answers the question. Thank you.
Any others? And before we talk a little bit more about this in love. Now, I want to make this statement, and I don't want anyone to be offended by it, because some of you may enjoy this song that I'm about to make a comment about. But it's a song, and I enjoy the song, Falling in Love with Jesus. I don't understand that song. I don't understand that phrase, falling in love with Jesus. From the sense of the word, we use the word, two individuals meet each other and they have these feelings. But the problem with that, with using that phrase when it comes to my relationship with Jesus, is that we fall in love with people and we fall out of love with people, then I'm saying I can fall in love with Jesus and just fall out with him. So I don't like to use that terminology when it comes to a serious relationship with the Lord, and I just threw that in because there's something personal. But let me move on.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
If that's okay. My comment was similar to that, how, we live in a society that uses terms interchangeably. And, at one time, the term love was very sacred. You reserved it for certain things. You don't just throw I love you around. But now we love everything. I love my cat. I love, this and, and even for serious relationships, when people are talking about it, sometimes we may use the term interchangeably. In love, when I think sometimes we ought to be careful, because anything you can fall in love with, you can fall out of love with them as well. So, when we're talking about God-centered love, or even a love for a spouse and for your spouse, we have to be careful about using that term, because we have to realize that marriage is a covenant, and it is that covenant set up by the Lord. So we can't automatically look at it in that way. Do you agree?
Yes. In fact, you bring up an interesting statement you mentioned that marriage is a covenant that God really is the author of. And I often ask, when I speak to the singles, I often ask the question, what does the Bible give us as far as the main purposes for marriage? And the Bible gives us 3 reasons to marry in order. And the first one he mentioned is for companionship, because he said it wasn't good for the man to be alone. So he created Eve. And I draw from that the first reason for marriage is for companionship. The second reason, he goes on to say to replenish the earth. So I would say the second reason for marriage is to have children, to bear children if you can, or to real children. And then the third reason the Bible gives for marriage, and it's taken from 1 Corinthians, and that is to avoid fornication. Let every man have his own wife, let every wife have her own husband. And this is for the purpose of avoiding fornication. So the Bible gives us these 3 reasons: for companionship, to replenish the earth, and to avoid fornication. And when I finished giving these 3 reasons, I asked the singles, I said, now what does love have to do with it from a biblical perspective when it comes to marriage? I understand husbands are told to love their wives, but as far as making that decision, the Bible does not even mention anything about love in the, I would say, what we refer to as the dating stages of it, because it says, husband, love your wife. It's dealing with a marriage, a relationship. But we put the emphasis on these feelings prior to marriage, and when it comes down to it, it should simply be based upon a covenant, as our sister stated, because if a person is not committed to the institution of marriage, they shouldn't even think about it. If a person is not committed to the individuals that they want to marry, they shouldn't even go any further. And these 2 commitments are based upon covenants and not feelings. So you're on the point. The young lady that just spoke about the covenant, how serious it should be. And I'm not trying to take the fun out of the feelings. And I've been married over 30 years. And I had feelings then, and they are deeper now. And that's a part of it, and a major part of it. But sometimes I think we put too much emphasis just on the feelings, and this is what creates the problem. So that's good. The covenant is very important. The commitment is very important. Any other things before we go any further?
Yeah, that's a very, very, very interesting point you bring out, Pastor Hunter. And I think I heard one preacher say that we as saints now, especially the younger saints, we have so much TV and drama going on. So we kind of looking for the movies where you got to have, the magical fling, or I don't know, that or whatnot. And probably that's why in the modern era, that's probably why marriages don't last like they should, and that's why there's more divorce, not only in the world but even in the church, because we kind of base, like you said, most people don't think about the 3 reasons that you mentioned: companionship, replenishing the earth, and then avoiding fornication. It's all, like you say, more emphasis now is placed strictly on the love. And I've often heard, and I don't know, maybe you can put in your comments on this, I've often heard people who's been married for a while to say, well, it's sometime where you might not feel, quote unquote, like you in love with that person that you're married to, but because you're committed to them and because you honor God, you did this vow not only before the people who was attending your wedding, but before God, they endured. And of course, the end even as you kind of mentioned, is even better than when they first started, when they first married each other. They have a greater love, but it's not based on feeling or emotion. It's all about the commitment.
Right. Well, yes, and that is so true because, and what I'll do, I'll go through these. I got about 10 things concerning falling in love, and within them, some of the things you just said is already included. Number one, I have, of course, in love. This is what it's a temporary emotional high that we feel towards someone because of their physical characteristics and personality traits. Sometimes people see an individual and they feel something, and that's there. It cannot be denied. It's a temporary feeling. I consider it an emotional high that person feels toward that individual because of their presence or the way they present themselves, perhaps the way they speak or the way they conduct themselves or do something, does something. And so it's there, but it's temporary. Number two, during this stage, people look over or they can't see the faults and the serious problems their beloved may have. When a person is, quote, in love, they either look over or they just cannot see or they are willing to put up with simply because of these temporary feelings that they are experiencing. And if you have any comments and want me to stop and go any further on any of these, please just feel free to jump right in. The third thing, the person who is in love has the illusion that their beloved is almost perfect. An illusion is there that that person is almost perfect. Number four, during this stage, oftentimes responsibilities are neglected, opportunities are missed, and bad decisions are made during this period of this temporary high feeling in love. Number five, because of in love feelings, other relationships are sometimes affected. This would be parents, friends, sometimes pastors, church members, and the list can go on. Number six, most people make the mistake of thinking that the in-love feelings will not or should not diminish. Most people think that if they diminish, that is all over. Number seven, depending on the situation, the in-love feelings last at the most about 2 years before reality kicks in. Now, I may mention, well, let me go to number 8, then I'll make this comment. Number 8, after the in-love feelings are gone, what used to be so right is now so wrong, and all the faults are clearly seen. Now, some of you may have heard a little Earth, Wind, and Fire in that description. They had a song out when I was, I guess, in the 70s, growing up as a young person. And the song talked about people, and it really talked about being in love. And the title of the song was After Love Is Gone. And it put emphasis on, and I took it a step further and said that there are things that people, when they're in a relationship, when they have all these gooey in-love feelings going on, they're willing to put up with some things. And some things they think they are just cute. But then after they get married, some of those very same things that they thought were so cute, they're tired of them now, and they don't want to put up with them. It becomes real now. It was cute when I had the feelings, but when these feelings start to diminish, then I'm tired of that, don't do it anymore. And so this is what happens, because people, as long as these feelings are there, they'll put up with these bad habits. People will put up with things that they wouldn't necessarily put up with for the sake of the feelings that they are experiencing at the time. But those experiences or those feelings are going to start fading away, but those habits are going to stay there. And so after those feelings fade away, those faults and those habits that they had when they were dating, but they looked over them for the sake of the feelings. But when they're married, that's when serious issues start to flare up, simply because now they can see the faults more so and the wrong things more so because the feelings begin to diminish. Number 9, and then I'll let you ask a question. I only have 2 more. Number 9, most people enter marriage by the way of in-love experiences. They make a decision to be married based upon them being in love with a person. And then finally, number 10, once the in-love feelings are gone, and this is Brother Robbie made mention about people not staying in marriage relationship. Here's one of the main reasons. Number 10, once the in-love feelings are gone, people search for a new, get this now, in-love experience. They're searching for those experiences again. So they believe that their marriage is all over because they don't have those in-love feelings, rather than working toward and developing a longer-lasting relationship and feelings. They give up because the in-love feelings are gone, and then some people search for those in-love feelings again. So what do? They find another person, and then they develop a relationship with that person, and then those in-love feelings fade away. Then they go and find another person, and the cycle continues. Questions or comments?
I have a comment slash a question. My question is slash comment is that I noticed that I totally agree with what you said, because, through just seeing other people, and sometimes we learn through other people's examples. And I think one of the thing that happens is we live in a society that is so tolerant. And so sometimes we bring these tolerances into our relationship in the fact that we're not honest. And we don't feel like you can be open and honest about different things. I mean, of course, in respecting people, but being honest, I think sometimes, too, that's what I call this. That's why I'm not so much an advocate of dating so much, because when you put a title on it, like, oh, that person's my boyfriend and I'm dating or whatever, something happens to the two individuals where they just become fake.
Right.
So that they just become fake. So now I'm like this pristine person and you're pristine. So it's like nobody sees the faults of the other person. So the little issues that you need to work out, you don't work it out because you're so busy trying to so-called impress this person you say you want to be with. And so when they enter a marriage covenant again, they can't keep the covenant because who they fell in love with, the in love again, wasn't the real person to begin with, because they were phony the whole time. Don't you agree?
That is so true, because let's face it, we put on our best behavior, we put on our best appearance during those, quote, dating stages. Because what we're trying to do, we want the person to appreciate and to receive us. And so we're going to put forth our best. It's almost like an ongoing interview. You're going to interview for a job, you're putting forth your best. And so it's like an ongoing, every time we go to dinner, it's an ongoing interview. I don't want him or her to see me this way. And I want to make sure that I'm on my best behavior. But when you say I do at that altar, and you get behind closed doors, then you take those masks and everything off. And you're right. You're so true. That is so true.
How do we counteract that? Because I mean, for me, I reject completely that, because I feel like if it's too much effort to be somebody else. It's just a lot of effort. It really is. So if who you are, who I am, isn't good enough or isn't the best, then then you're not who the Lord has for me. Because if we have to be honoring God, we can't be phony. So I guess I look at marriage in a completely different fashion than most people I talk to. But my whole thing is that you have to honor God by being who He has called you to be. And when you are truly who He's called you to be, then He'll bring whoever you need to you. You don't need to be somebody else to try to impress. And I think sometimes as women, society puts a big pressure on us to be, you got to be this way in order for somebody to think you're pretty, or you got to be that way in order for somebody to think you're mate material. But just be who God's called you to be, and God will send the right person in due season. Don't you agree?
Yeah, now, I agree with that. And just to attach, it is important for us. I don't want to downplay our appearance. It is important for us to look the best that we can, not necessarily to attract the person, but of course we want to. How can I put this? Let's face it. The first impression is a person's appearance.
Yes, I agree.
So, and so, in other words, it's not as though you're trying to, of course, never, we never should want a person, we want a person to lust after us, but I'm saying to be neat, to be clean, to have things in order physically is the first thing that a person would notice about us. So I don't want to downplay that, but to put on this.
I agree.
Yes. But I agree with exactly what you're saying. I think prayer is very important. We should always pray and be prayerful. We should not necessarily give a person all the information about us from the outset, but we should not conceal things that could cause a person to think otherwise. And let me give you an illustration. I knew of a situation where two individuals, two individuals, I'm assuming they both were interested in one another, but one did not want the other one to know that they had a child. And this was hidden for some time. And it came about a little later, and much later in the relationship. And something like that, I think somewhere down the line need to be made known for the sake of the person, just being straight with them, being straightforward. On the other hand, I think some things don't need to be discussed or revealed to an individual for the sake of privacy and in the life of that individual. And I don't know how I got across from that topic, away from that, but nevertheless, the bottom line is the feelings can grow. True feelings can be developed once you establish, and I think our sister values, certain standards. All of us have within our minds, whether or not we verbally talk about it, whether we write a list, there are certain standards, there are values that we have and look for in individuals. Once we come to the conclusion that those values and those standards are not there, then the choice is whether or not we're going to compromise or whether or not we're going to look further for those values and those standards. And this is why I hold to the statement that even with the falling in love thing, it's always a choice. It's not as though we have feelings and we can't help ourselves when we meet an individual. Once you find out certain things about that person, although the in-love feelings are there, once you find out certain things about that person, you will make a decision whether or not you're going to continue in pursuing a relationship with that individual, and that's a choice. Any comments? Anyone disagree that it is? Anyone thinks that being in love is not a choice? It's just something that you cannot help. It just happens. I mean, I've heard people say that It's something that you cannot help. It just happens. Does anyone feel that way or believe that way?
I think lust is
You think
that
what?
way. Lust, not real love, but lust is not, it's people don't allow the choice because the lust takes over and they feel that they don't have a choice. But in real love, as you were teaching, I was going, yes, love is a choice. And the people that have relationships that remain, they choose to love, not because of what they see or what they feel, but their open-eyed choice.
And that's true. And I think someone challenged me on that one time. They challenged me to the point that they were saying, and Brother Robbie, if I'm going too long, stop me now.
Oh, no, you got free course. This is good. Continue.
They challenged me on this to the point that they said something to the point that love, being in love, was not necessarily a choice. It's something that just happens, and the person cannot help themselves. That they're falling in love with this person, and they just cannot help themselves. Now, I agree that it may have been a spark there. I agree that there may have been some initial feelings there, but the individuals determine whether or not they're going to continue to allow those feelings to take root and grow, or whether or not they're going to cut them off. And I use the illustration. I said, say two people, say that a lady meets a man and he's everything that she wants, and she's in love with this person, and she's so in love with him she can't help herself, and she's so in love, everything she ever wanted in a person, those qualities and values are there. But then she finds out some way, somehow, that this individual whom she's so madly in love with and have these deep feelings that she just can't help, she finds out that this individual had been on trial and for killing his previous wife, and he was acquitted or because of something that happened in the trial, but the question still was lingering whether or not he truthfully had anything to do with the death of his first wife. Well, right then and there, now that person, all of those feelings, and all of those feelings that person can't help. Now the reality comes in, and they're not making a decision based on any feelings. They're gonna make a decision based on his needs. And so that's why I said the choice is based on values and things we know about a person, not just the feelings. The feelings are there, but we have to. When it really comes down to it, you're either going to accept the bad habit, you're going to accept things that you don't necessarily agree with and go along with. You're either going to lower your standards or hold to your standards. You're going to hold to values or lower your values. And that's not a decision based on feelings. That's a decision based upon what you want to do in a situation like that. So it is a choice. So now love is real, and romantic love is true. The book of Song of Solomon, he talks about being in love to the point that the people are intoxicated. They're drunk off their feelings. Can y'all still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Robbie, you still here? Hello?
Oh, yeah, we're still here.
Okay. It sounded like my phone went out. But anyway, Solomon talks about being intoxicated with the feelings that the two lovers have in the book of Song of Solomon. So those feelings are real, and they're God allowed us to have the opportunity to experience those feelings. But from a biblical perspective, this is how I define love and romance. It's an attraction. Of course, there has to be an initial attraction when you meet a person. something has to be there that captures your attention, whether it's a person's hair, eyes, or the way they speak. It may even be their occupation. It may be the way they interact with other people, but there's something there that initially we're attracted to. Number two, of course, it is a feeling, but then it is also a choice. It is a commitment, and then after these things, then you are permitted by God, if you engage in a marriage relationship, to express those feelings that you have for the person. And so true love in marriage is a combination of commitment and emotions. I'm not taking all the fun out of it. The emotions are there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here for 30 years with my wife. We enjoy one another emotionally. But the fact is, on those days where we're upset with each other, that's when commitment has to kick in. So it has to be a combination of commitment and emotions. Because sometimes people are upset with each other. And if they're not committed, they will walk away and give up. And this is what is happening today. The emotional part is there, but the commitment is not there. I'm resting my mouth. I'm listening.
That's very good. That is very good. I was waiting on you to bring out that the illustration about the couple, and then she finds out that he was possibly an ex-murderer or whatever the case. So very good, because I think when I first heard you do the presentation, I was probably a little skeptical, to be honest, Pastor Hunter. But that illustration, I was just like, if I was flipping it on the female from being in the male and found out that someone I was interested in was on trial, or it was, that would change my mind. So yeah, I believe it's definitely a choice, and I really agree with what you said about the commitment part. That basically both of them have to be be going at the same time, in essence. And this might be a subject for a marriage seminar, but how do you gain that commitment? Is that something that you gain in the dating side, or is that something that you pray for, or is that something that you just have, or what?
Well, see, the thing is, there are, I would say, the basic two commitments that we have to make, that we should make. First of all, we should be committed to the marriage institution, and that was the covenant was put in place by God. And I know people can say they are committed to it, but again, this is when you have to pray and seek the Lord. But I'm speaking as an individual. As an individual, you first of all must be committed to the very covenant of marriage, meaning that once I enter a marriage relationship, I'm committed until death will part us. That's the commitment. It shouldn't be the questions in my mind. I'm here as long as you're going to treat me right, or as long as you're going to do what you're supposed to do. That shouldn't be in my mind. What should be in my mind, I am committed to this covenant relationship that God has allowed man and woman to experience. And then the second commitment is, once I get to know this person through the dating stage or whatever the stage is, once I get to know as much as I am allowed to know about them, then I have to commit. Am I committed to this person just as they are? I know they're going to grow and they're going to go through changes, but am I willing to put up with, I see a sign of a little selfishness in them. I see a little anger there. Am I willing to commit to putting up with that? And so these are the commitments that must be made. Whatever I see in that person, I have to realize that it's going to grow. I'm going to see more of it. If I'm seeing a little something that I do not approve of, and I have a problem with, once we're together 24/7, I'm going to see more of that. And so I have to ask myself, if this continues, will I continue in a committed relationship? Am I willing to commit if this habit is going to be there? And so these are things we have to ask ourselves as an individual. And, of course, I am a advocate of premarital counseling and premarital dating as well. I even believe in premarital dating. If a person sees someone they're interested in, I believe in getting some type of counseling before you even make it known if you're interested in the person, or respond to the person if they're trying to get your attention. But definitely some premarital counseling. And some things can come out. What I used to do, I do questionnaires, where I give both individuals these various topic things to look at. Then we come back and discuss them, and I designed it in such a way that certain things will come out, and they could see the commitment areas, and the areas where there will be a lack of commitment. But once again, most of the people during my era that were married did not have that type of counseling, and most even people today do not have that type of premarital counseling. But the thing is, prayer and being honest with yourself and being real and taking advice from other people and understanding that people can be deceitful. And I'll pause. Any questions, comments?
It sounds like you're saying that marriage or love is a commitment. It's a choice, it's a commitment. And I think in our society we've been taught the romantic side. And people often go into marriage on romance, which you just taught that is just a temporary feeling. It's not going to last, that in-love feeling, and that we should concentrate more on the commitment of marriage instead of the feelings of marriage.
But let me clarify now. I don't want us to think that feelings will. I want to say that the feelings, the temporary feelings will fade away, but then that's when the true feelings would begin to develop, the true romance. Because let's face it now, if two people are really saved and living for the Lord, they cannot experience romance before they get married. They don't supposed to. So you don't have a taste of romance prior to marriage if you're doing it the Bible way, if you're not playing around. So you really don't have the opportunity to develop any type of romantic experiences and feelings before marriage. Marriage is the only opportunity that you have to express your romantic feelings and develop them. But this is why the values and the standards. See, I can develop something with a person if I have something to build on. If we share standards, if we share values, then we can get that romantic thing going. But if we are fussing and fighting over values and standards, we can't get into the romantic part because the hindrance is we don't agree with the same values. We don't have the agreement when it comes to standards. And so I don't want to sound like I'm very structured in this, but I want to say I think we put the emotions ahead of values and standards, where they should be a part of our decision, but they should not, if not balanced with our values and standards, they should not be ahead of our values and standards. But by no means, I don't want the listeners here to think that taking the fun out of the thing. No, it's exciting to be married. I mean, it's overwhelming. Feelings are overwhelming, but they all have a foundation, and that is similar values or same values and commitments and standards. And I was coming on an individual that spoke up. Does that give further light on what you were saying?
Yes, I think you were clear in what you taught us.
Yes. But by no means I don't want to anyone to think that the feelings are not important, because God put them there, and they are important, and they're very much a part of romance. Is a major part of a relationship. Sex is a major part of it. But the fact is, I think people put these things ahead of other things. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think what you're trying to say is they have to get the foundation right and deal with, the major issues before you bring that in. And that way, when those other things may fade, they'll have a solid foundation that can, carry them
right.
for a longer period of time.
Exactly, because when it gets tough, and when you're not feeling those feelings, this is when you say, you could go back on those standards and values that you have. But, marriage is great. I mean, I say it's great. I have a great marriage, and we're growing in God's grace. But I thank God that it was based upon two people, my wife and I. We had values, same values. Of course, they were centered around our relationship with the Lord, and we had commitment to God. And I think the best marriage is when both individuals are committed to the Lord. And once that commitment is to the Lord, then they could better commit to one another. And that's just an old-fashioned statement I just made, but I wholeheartedly believe it.
Amen.
Any other things?
I have a question. You brought up the point about love being a choice, and you gave the illustration in looking at individuals and to see as far as is this something that I'm able to work with,
Right.
And I just wanted to ask, because people are different, people have different. What is the defining factor? Because I do believe in relationships that I've seen that didn't work. People say like, oh, I saw the red flags before, but they didn't really pay attention to the red flags. And but on the flip side, there are marriages that have worked, and they seemingly saw their differences, but they realized that it was something that they could work through. As you said, that there's a foundation. So how do you know when something you can work through? Because everything is not going to be even keel all the time, because you're complete, and you're taking two individuals and combining them, and you have a personality, the other person has a personality or different things. But again, as you said, the foundation should be the same. But at the same time, of course, you're melding two worlds. So how does that work?
Well, the thing is, say let me just throw some examples like this. I think would fit. If say if an individual is from a man is from a rural city, small town, rural city, and he has old-fashioned values in that he believes the wife should stay at home and take care of home and cook for him and take care of the children and so forth. And he meets a young lady that's just pursuing a career. Now, right there, there's a standard that has to either be compromised if they're going to continue, or you have to give up altogether. One on one side, one is going to have to give up. And in such a case, and I understand people can say things and not truly mean it, and then once they get married, they go back and reevaluate it and say, well, I don't want to do this. This is where you really have to look at something. Am I willing for on the lady, the end for the wife? Am I willing to give up my medical practice for the sake of this, for a marriage? Or on the other end, am I willing to give up a standard that I think should be for marriage? And this is something very serious. And this may be an extreme case, But I'm using this to show that whatever it is, the individual has to ask themselves, look at it clearly. If it's there, it's just there. And you use the illustration. Some people said the red flags were there, and what they were saying was the red flags were there, but I ignored them because of the way I felt at the time. Mm-hmm. But you have to look at that standard, that situation, and boldly ask yourself, am I willing to give up my individuality and to blend and bend with this person to become a new person? Because let's face it, once you marry, you become a new person. You become a part of that person. The person becomes part of you. Amen. And so you become a new person, a different person. And there are certain things that people do not want to compromise. And if that man does not want to compromise his wife going out to work, he does not even need to consider her. If she does not want to compromise her career for that relationship, then she does not even need to consider that relationship. And these are just extreme situations. But when it comes to, I'm trying to use something that would be not a major issue, something major. Maybe y'all can come up with something, but we know our limits, and then we know what we're able to compromise. There were, for myself as an example, by no means I could have married a person that was very aggressive, a female. That's just me. I could not put up with that, knowing my temperament and knowing how I am. And so that if I had met a person that was very aggressive, then that relationship would not have gone anywhere, because that's where I draw the line. Mm-hmm. Now, that's me. I'm not saying anything against women that are more aggressive than others, but I'm saying for me, that's it. I do not compromise in that area in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And so we all know as individuals, some women may not want a weak-willed man.
Amen.
You understand? Or a shy man. This type of thing. I don't know. But the thing is, we draw the line right there. Whatever it is. And we need to be honest with ourselves before we say I do. Or even go any further in the relationship. Follow up on that.
Yes. Good stuff.
All right. Any other things before I give you all my final thing, and that is I'm going to give you a list of when you're ready to marry and when you're ready for marriage and when you're not ready for marriage. This is my list. Are you ready for that list, or any other questions?
When a man says he has feelings for you, what does that really mean?
Say it again.
When a man says he has feelings for you, what does that really mean?
Well, when it comes down to it, depends on the individual. Now, if we want to put it in a, let's say, in a general category based upon the thinking of a male or man, I would say, for the most part, he finds you attractive. It's in some form or fashion. For the most part, he finds you physically attractive. Because men, what's more important to us is physical features. Okay. Overall, in general now.
Is that just, what if it's just like a phone, I don't know how to say a phone relationship, I don't know how you put that. And then I have another question too. How can I stop myself from being so emotionally attached?
Okay, now, you had a second question to the way I just responded. Did you have a second question to that?
Yes, but that was, I guess it was a separate question, but I'm still listening to the answer to the first question. Because it's me and my friend, we were just talking on the phone.
You've never seen each other?
No, we grew up together,
Okay.
And we were like boyfriend and girlfriend in junior high school, but later on we got in contact again, and he was supposed to come out and visit or whatever, but for whatever reason it didn't happen. So I'm not trying to rush anything. I think, how can what does that mean when he says he has feelings for me?
And even in a situation like that, something could have, in a situation where two people know each other, it could have been something that has occurred, in the past that they still remembered. And because of that experience, it created some type of emotional feelings. And that could be a number of things. But then based upon the second question, you said, how can you keep from being emotionally attached? What was that question?
Yes, sir.
Once again, we control our emotions to a certain degree. For example, and I'm going back and I try to use other emotions other than love to explain this. A person gets angry, which is an emotion. Now, of course, they can allow their anger to get out of control, where they can go and jump on a person and get in trouble with the law. Or they can control their emotions and say, I'm not going to do that because they know they could get in trouble.
Right.
So they control their emotions based upon consequences. But when it comes to the love thing, there are a lot of things that are not illegal, and when it comes to our feelings in this love area, but we still have to understand consequences, and we want to make a sound decision, not just based on how we feel. So the way, if you're concerned about developing feelings toward an individual, and you don't want it to get to that point, not at this time or a particular time. You want to be a little bit slower with it. You don't want it to rapidly. You don't want things to go too much further until you're able to think clearly about this. Then, of course, the more communications, that deepens the feelings.
Right.
And so we have to control, time spent, whether it's over the phone or communication. And we live in a day of instant communications, with the internet and all this texting and all that. You can just text folks and get feelings. So y'all got a rough time. Now, I didn't have this when I was growing up. I didn't even have we didn't even have cell phones. And so everything was going slow. But now you can see folks' face and all this stuff, electronic stuff and texting, and you can develop feelings electronically. So you just have to be careful.
But how do you continue to develop a relationship with a person as far as getting to know them if you're limiting your communication at the same time to try to limit those feelings?
Well, you just have to be very careful as far as how serious the meetings and the conversations are, and how lengthy they are.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
You can control how deep those conversations go.
Okay.
And you have to keep it at I said that something in some of the singers. I said something at our last single conference, and some of the younger ones, they just they weren't too thrilled about it. But I made a statement, and I said that sometimes we need to learn how to date a person, especially if you're around them. Date them without allowing them to know that you're dating them. I know it sounds crazy. In other words, you're interested in a person, start checking them out, but don't allow them to know that you're checking them out.
Right.
And so what happens is, you may be in groups or whatever, a group going somewhere. If such and such is going, you may just want to go and check that person out over a period of time. And they may be trying to talk with you. You just, I'm not ready for it, and just, brush off, but yet you are. You're not lying and being deceitful, but you're not ready to verbally admit that you are. Right. And so a lot of times you can check people out and check things out and not allow them to know it. That's the best way to do it, if it's possible. And then when you see enough positive things there, and then you may want to respond to the individual. But in a situation where you already know someone, and this is happening, if you've known someone for some time, you sort of have a feeling about that person. If you've known them for some time, you sort of know whether or not it's some things that are there that you are not willing to deal with and put up with. But I can't give a solid answer as to how do you guard your feelings, but yet you get to know the person. You just have to talk to your mind and say, I'm just checking this situation out. I'm being prayerful. And if it leads to something, it leads to something.
Fasting helps too.
What did you say?
I said fasting helps too.
Yes, you have to do that. Yes, but you don't want you don't want to be too comfortable with that person, and you don't want to be in compromising places with the person. See, my mind go back. I'm of the old school. I'm very old fashioned, but that's the way we were taught and brought up.
It makes sense.
And my wife, when we would go to the PAW conventions, I would never go up to her room where she was staying with her roommates at the convention. I would call up there to that room, and she would come down the lobby. We'd sit in that lobby. Now, today, folks do things different, but that's just what we were taught. And
it's the right way.
And that's the standard that we live by.
I agree.
But you just have to be wise and protect yourself and guard your heart. And God when we're sincere, God has a way of warning us and letting us know.
Yeah.
And see, I often say, sometimes people will not sincerely go before the Lord concerning His will when it concerns a relationship about a person. And the reason why they won't sincerely go before the Lord, because they're afraid the Lord would tell them the truth.
True. Right.
So they want the Lord. They want the Lord to agree with it. They don't want the truth. They just want God to go along with it.
They want what they want. And
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, probably in most cases, what I find when people are afraid to bring stuff to the Lord, and I'll even go so far when people, and you probably can vouch for this or not, Pastor Hunter, when people are afraid to bring stuff before their pastor, a lot of times that's a key thing. Like if I can't enter to tell pastor, hey, I'm seeing this lady, or I'm seeing this man, if you're, a female, that's probably an indicator, because I guess I would go, well, they are spiritual leaders, so they are shepherds, so they're looking out for our souls. So probably our greatest connection earthly to God will be the person, our pastor, or a shepherd, under shepherd. So, yeah, if you're afraid to bring them to God or ask God or even to your spiritual leader, then that's that probably would be even safe to say that's a red flag. Would you agree, Pastor?
Yeah, that would be a sign. That's a sign there that I'm not sure about this. That's right. That's so true. Any other things before I give y'all this list? If y'all want it, I mean, I won't go into it, Brother Robbie. Do I need to go into it?
Oh yeah. You know what? I got a couple. I got 3 things that I might need to go before you give us the dessert.
Yeah, and we may have to do this. If I don't get to this, I can do it later, and I don't mind coming back and doing this later. But go ahead.
We might have to do a part 2. Now I should have asked this probably 20 minutes ago. What is romance when in the context of Christian? Well, let's say in general, what is romance? Because I think in a male mind, or at least in my mind, I'm probably thinking romance. I kind of got an idea of probably more physical. Then I also got in my mind the idea of a guy giving flowers or whatever to somebody he's interested in. But how would you define romance?
Well, now depends on. You mean romance between 2 people who are considering themselves dating, or two people who are married, or
dating,
just in general?
Dating. Oh yeah, let's just say saved dating. People that
Okay.
are saved to dating. What is good romance? I guess if there's a such thing.
Well, it is very limited, and someone even asked before, how can two saved people express their feelings toward one another? And my answer to that, it's very limited, because once again, now I'm old school. If y'all I'm just warning you. Some things I'm about to say here is very old school, but I believe it is a good foundation for relationship. Now, romance is strictly forbidden as far as physical expression between two people who are not married. It's strictly forbidden from the scriptures, and it should be strictly forbidden in a relationship of a true believer. Now, you're very limited in what you can do. Now, I don't know if some will argue the fact, what can you do physically? Well, I'll just use myself as an illustration. Again, I'm going back to what I was taught and what I experienced. We were taught you do not hold hands, you do not kiss when you are saved in a relationship, because let's be straightforward with this thing. Any physical contact can lead to something else. Holding hands can lead to something else. A little smooching here and there can lead to something else. Now, one individual said, well, I can control. Well, you can't control the other person, what's in their feelings. You can't control what they feel.
That's right.
You may can control yours. And so to avoid these things, you should really have a discipline about yourself. That hands-off policy is a good policy. I never held my wife's hand. We never kissed each other before until we started off out, and they said, I do. That's when we first kissed. I held her hand one time. I put a ring on her finger. Now, and she told me after we were married, she said, if you had made any attempts to try to touch me in any way, kiss me, she said, I would have called it, had nothing else to do with you.
Wow.
And this is what she told me. But the fact is, I respected her, she respected me. And so we never put ourselves in a situation. So I could not, that's why I made the statement, romance is something that you cannot really experience until you get married. Let's face it. Until you really... What did you say?
That flush is the best.
Yeah.
Amen.
This is why you cannot allow yourself. And our sister, that she made a statement about dating, and that's what was a good statement. It's not wise to be in a long dating relationship.
That's right.
Because you get too comfortable with one another.
Yeah.
And my wife and I dated but we were very limited in how we dated, because she lived in Birmingham, I lived in Mobile. It was only a year and 8 months.
Do you think that's... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead and make that statement.
I was going to say, do you think that can be sometimes helpful in a sense when you don't have as easy access to that person?
Right. And it was very helpful then, because I made mention we did not have, of course, cell phones and computers, and back then a long distance phone call cost you some money.
Okay.
So we would only maybe talk with each other maybe once a week, maybe twice a week at the most. I saw my wife probably, and this is the truth, in those 1 year and 8 months, we may have saw each other 20 times before we married each other. Only 20 times, if it was that. But that can be an advantage, but then it could be a disadvantage, because a person can conceal a lot of things from an individual in a situation like that. But I forgot what we were saying. Oh, we're talking about romance. So you're very limited. What can you say to the person? Y'all give me some things. How are some ways you can express yourself romantically if when you're dating? I don't know of any. basically, than just being. Here it is. This is what I want to say. The most of all those loves, we talked about those different degrees of love. We talked about agape, which is a godly love, divine love. But let's talk about the three human loves. There's romance, friendship love, and family love, right? Right. Well, the one that you should be experiencing in that dating relationship is the friendship love. You should be trying to develop a good friendship. Now, if you have a good friendship, you have a good foundation. Because if you are good friends with an individual, you will enjoy their company, whether no romance is there or nothing else is there. If you can learn to be good friends with that person, then that's something great to build on. And so what you do during the dating stage is developing a friendship love. And then the next love that you experience after friendship is romantic love, and that's only after you're married. And then the next type of love that you experience after romantic love is family love. But they all are based on friendship. Somebody says it's tight, but it's right.
Yeah. Amen.
So what was the other? So does that answer or justify your question, Brother Robbie?
Oh yeah, I guess I was. I called. We were talking about romance, so that's why I wanted to elaborate just a little bit more on that. I think somebody mentioned that. I guess that we base most of our relationships now more on the love or the romance thing versus the commitment thing. So that's why I was like, okay, well, what is romance? Right. And you basically, and with saints, like you said, really there's no romance. It really should be more friendship based and commitment based relationships versus the love feeling thing or the romance thing.
I have a comment.
If I'm following you right, go ahead.
Okay. Now, women are very emotional and romantic. And so romance, not talking about the physical expression, what about the flowers? What about the cards? The greeting cards. To me, that could be an expression of romance without being physical or not being sexual.
Right, and that's good. I agree with that.
Going out, spending time together. I understand that being friendship too. I understand that, but that's that's taking friendship to another level when you start getting roses and flowers and dating. It's different.
Well, and I think that you should really, once you get to that level, you're seriously thinking about getting married.
Oh, not even getting married, just dating.
Well, I'm saying, once you get to that part, you mentioned things like roses. The reason why what did you say?
Yes.
The reason why
Valentine's Day you get candy.
Say it again.
Like on Valentine's Day you get roses and candy. You're not married.
No. But I'm saying you should be at least entertaining the thought about it. Okay, the person should be. You should be potentially interested in marrying the person in some form or fashion, in my opinion.
Okay, but in terms of what is romance, I guess my point is, for me, I would think that getting flowers and candies and cards and stuff, that's a form of romancing without it being a sexual expression. It's still, I guess it could be, would you call that physical expression?
No, I would not. I think that's permissible, but I think that should only be permissible when it's getting serious. And the reason, let me tell you why I'm saying that, because sometimes, say if a person does that just for the sake of doing it, is Valentine's Day, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to send a person some roses. Now, to me, if roses mean something to me, I know I'm in a marriage, but the point is, you never know what the people read, the other person reads into that, and so you have to be very careful. If a person is just sending, say for example, roses, just for the sake of doing it, but the other person may read into that where it's getting serious now, so now you're having a problem. So you have to be very careful in those things, because you never know how a person is going to interpret what you're doing. What you say?
I didn't say anything. That was somebody else.
Oh, but I was saying you have to be very careful in those things. I think most of the expressions should be friendship expressions. And by no means should you start acting as though you're married before you're married.
Absolutely, I
mean, that should never happen.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just I had a few more questions. I'm probably gonna let you save that other part. That.
Oh yeah. I'm not gonna get into it. I already said it.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you say that. Cause some of you some of you seen the little commercial I put on YouTube, Facebook, or whatnot. Pastor Hunter is actually, I guess now he's a suffragan bishop, so he actually has two churches. Yeah. I know you might have to hit both churches in the morning, so I don't want to. I know we're ringing you like a rag tonight. We're squeezing all your goodness out. But I had two more questions, and then if there are any other questions, then we'll let those go, and we'll try to arrange to have you on sometime in the very near future as your schedule permits. So, of course, we talked about love is a choice, and this is rewinding back to like an hour and a half ago almost. So you talked about the song, people falling in love with Jesus, they can fall out of falling in love, and period. So with all that being said, can or should Christians fall in love?
Well, I wouldn't ban the terminology, by no means. Even the song, and again, that was just a personal. I can be very picky about things, so pay no attention to me about little picky, detailed things. But I'm just like that. But I don't think it's a sin in using the term "I'm falling in love." But I think the most important thing is to understand that feelings come and feelings go. And it's up to two individuals to base a relationship on something that's more valuable to them rather than just some feelings that are going to fade away. You can always build, as I stated earlier, on some values that you both have in common, some standards that you both have in common. But when it comes to we both just feel this way for this moment, and that's all we have, if that goes away, then we have nothing else. So I'm not trying to say enjoy the feelings. They're there. They are real, and you all have experienced it. You have experienced these toward people, and you know it's real, and I have also. But the reality is it has to be so much more than just those minor or puppy love feelings from the outset. Go on and say you're in love. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Even after this phone conference, don't go and rebuke people and tell them they shouldn't be in love and it's a false feeling or it's a stereotype, and stop singing that song, fall in love. I'm not saying do any of those things, but just understand that the most important thing is not just my feelings, but at least it balance my feelings with some values and standards and commitments. And this is what I'm looking for in a person.
Amen. Last, I think, for me.
Wow.
this is a very interesting one, I think, and I've never thought about it until tonight. But when should a couple start saying, I love you? Because we've talked about the 5 different types of love: romantic, family, friendly, divine, and being in love. So for a godly couple, and this might be even I don't know, maybe just a personal thing, I don't know, but I just, Pastor Hunter, just give us your thoughts on that. When should a saved and sanctified couple start saying, I love you?
That will vary, and I'll tell you why, because it depends on people. And I think, I don't know the individual's name, but I think the first young lady that was speaking, she made a statement how some things have become a tradition. Some things have just a part of society. And depending on the person, their background, and what they have experienced in life, some people, they expect that to be said to them in a relationship, for the relationship to be serious. In other words, if you never said you love me, and that means a lot to them. And that's not to say that person should just say it for the sake, because they wanted to say it, but at least they should discuss it in some form or fashion. And then some people will say it, and the other person may not take it serious. I think it's just totally left up to an individual. I don't want to give a do or don't in that, but I will say what's more important is actions and expressions and behaviors, rather than just saying it with our mouth. My wife and I don't go around. We don't say I love you 100 times a day, but we show it.
Right.
You know, if she leaves the house, I'm going to say I love you and this and that, and we'll leave. But we don't call each other back and forth. I love you more, and all this back. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying some people need that, but I would rather see it being expressed in what you do and what you say, and your kindness and the way you respect me. I'd rather see it. And I think we should learn to express it before we say it. So I don't put a do and don't on that. That's a very interesting question, though. Very interesting. It just depends on the culture of the person, or their background, or their upbringing.
Okay. Well, awesome. Are there any other questions or comments for Pastor Hunter?
Thank you.
Well, I enjoyed it.
Well, praise God. Praise God. Well, we definitely, Pastor Hunter, appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us. It's definitely been a blessing. I've been getting a lot of texts from people saying that, wow, this has been really, really good. This has been very helpful. So thank you very much. And like I said, we wanna. You gave us a full course meal, excluding dessert. So we're gonna have to get you back real soon for dessert.
And I don't mind doing it. I appreciate the invitation and enjoy talking about this.
So before you go, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pray. But we normally do prayer requests, and then we kind of go around and let people pray. But I know Pastor Hunter, again, his time is definitely precious or whatnot. And so I'm going to let, if you don't mind, Pastor Hunter, I would like for you just to say a prayer for the singles, maybe concerning love as a choice or whatnot. And if you want to leave after you pray, you can, and then we'll stick around and do prayer requests and general prayer or whatnot. But if you don't mind, Pastor Hunter, if you will, just say a general prayer for the singles.
Okay. Let's all look to the Lord. Oh, gracious God, we thank you for this time that Brother Robbie and these individuals have set aside to look at matters from a biblical perspective, to take time to pray and to discuss and to seek things according to the Word of God. And this is a display of their concern for their relationship with you, Lord, in a relationship with a significant person in their life. We ask that you bless them as individuals. You know their background, their experiences. You know things that they have experienced, you know, disappointments, things that they're looking forward to, things that they're going through. And God, we pray that you will bless each and every one of them according to their individual needs, their personal needs. Bless each spiritually, that they may continue to grow in your grace and be the individuals that you've called them to be. Bless them, oh God, in their efforts, if they're seeking to be married or if they are in a relationship and they have some concerns. We ask that you give them the wisdom how to behave themselves wisely and to handle the situation wisely according to your will. Make it known to them if they're questioning a situation. We ask that you make it known to them some way, somehow, of your will in this situation that they're in. We ask that you bless us, oh God, with the grace to be obedient to your word and not to allow our emotions and our feelings and our flesh to dictate to us behaviors, but help us to behave according to the word of God. Help us to be obedient. We realize that the flesh can be weak, but God, we know that you've given us a powerful word and you've given us your spirit to help us, oh God, to maintain the victory over the ungodly desires of the lust that potentially can be in our flesh. Now we ask that you bless all under the sound of my voice. Spiritually, bless them with the best of health. Bless them financially. Bless them in their careers, their businesses. And God, we ask that you, those that have a desire for a spouse, cause that individual to cross that path and to get their attention and to have an opportunity to inquire about that individual or potentially to develop a relationship with that individual. We realize the choice is ours, and we know that you're well aware of what we desire in a person and what we need in a person. And our prayer is that you allow these individuals to meet such an individual, such a person that will be most fulfilling in a successful marriage. Cause them to meet that individual. Cause them to know when that individual is in their presence, and cause them to make a decision in this most important decision of their life according to your will. We thank you for each and every one of them. Keep them through your grace and mercy in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you all. And Brother Robbie, I'll talk with you, and we'll talk a little later in the week.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, take care now.
All right,
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
That was so good.
Thank you. You're welcome. Goodbye.
Bye. Hello.
Praise God.
Everybody
Praise God. Hallelujah. Well, I pray that was a blessing.
Amen.
Yeah, well, I hope and pray that everybody enjoyed it. I